Welcome to your weekly Leadership Principle by Coach AJ and the mentor team at Martin County PAL. At Martin County PAL, our goal is not discipline, it is growth. We meet youth where they are and help them develop into healthy, productive leaders for the future. This week, the conversation focused on priorities. So imagine standing in the back of a room full of teenagers, right? And one by one, they start admitting to their daily screen time averages. 5 hours, 8 hours. And then a future leader stands up and, with total genuine shock, admits to spending 17 hours looking at a screen in a single day. 17.
It's just staggering.
Right. So today we're taking a deep dive into what it looks like to be entirely bankrupt on time. And, well, how we as parents might actually be handing our kids the very credit cards they're using to rack up that debt.
Yeah, it was a truly profound session to witness because, when we normally talk about time management, the conversation feels incredibly sterile.
Like spreadsheets and color-coded calendars.
Exactly, productivity hacks. But sitting in that room this week at Martin County PL, watching those youth confront the chaotic reality of their own choices, it was anything but sterile. It was raw.
Raw is literally the perfect word for it, because the mission of this deep dive isn't just to recap what we saw Coach AJ and the mentor team do. It's to take those uncomfortable truths the youth faced and really hold up a mirror to ourselves.
Yeah.
We've got to look at how we're setting the stage for these exact same priority battles at home.
Absolutely. And, if we connect this to the bigger picture to really understand the weight of the lesson, you have to picture the vibe in that room before things got serious.
It was so relaxed.
Right. A completely typical casual afternoon. The youth were filtering in, checking in, and there was this lighthearted banter bouncing around the room about graduation.
Yeah, I remember hearing, I've got 10 weeks left, or I've got 6 weeks left. They were just coasting.
Totally. But then Coach AJ grounded the room. He called everyone up to the front around a single table for a visual demonstration, and the energy shifted instantly.
It really did.
Yeah.
And he used a visual anchor that, honestly, a lot of us adults have seen before. We've all heard the old analogy of the rocks and the sand.
Yeah, the classic Covey thing.
Right. So Coach AJ brings out the jars. He had these large, heavy rocks to represent the big priorities. He had smaller pebbles for the important but secondary things like hobbies or sports. And then he had this massive container of crushed shells and dirt that he literally dug out of his own yard.
It was so funny.
To represent the sand, the noise, the mindless scrolling, the small stuff.
And what's fascinating here is how quickly a tangible object makes an abstract concept feel undeniable. But the most impactful moment of the night didn't even involve the rocks yet.
No.
It was the moment you mentioned at the start, the screen time check.
Oh, here's where it gets really interesting. Because Coach AJ pauses the whole setup and asks these future leaders to pull out their phones and look up their digital well-being stats.
Right.
He starts asking, who has over 7 hours? Hands go up. 9 hours. People are physically standing up to admit it. 10 hours. And then, boom, to 17 hours.
And if you were watching their faces, and there wasn't a trace of teenage defiance. They weren't bragging.
Not at all.
It was pure, unfiltered disbelief. They were staring at their screens like their pockets had just been picked.
Right. They were totally shocked. But let's unpack why they retreat into that sand. Because I don't buy for a second that it's just kids being lazy.
Oh, absolutely not.
There is a massive dopamine loop by design there, but I also think that sand is a numbing agent. They're overwhelmed by the pressure of everything else, so they just check out.
That is such a critical observation. It actually made me think of this analogy, financial debt versus time debt.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, when someone is in severe financial debt, the anxiety is so high that sometimes they just keep swiping the credit card because the numbers don't feel real anymore. They are numb to it.
Wow, yeah.
These kids are in massive time debt. And the insidious thing about time debt is how the interest compounds.
Wait, I love that. How does the interest compound on time?
Well, think about it. When you swipe your time credit card for 3 hours of mindless scrolling at midnight, you aren't just losing those 3 hours. You're paying compounding interest the next day in the form of lost sleep, a foggy brain, frayed nerves, and an inability to regulate your emotions during a hard test. You're borrowing from tomorrow's potential to pay for today's distraction.
Oof.
They were entirely bankrupt, and they didn't even realize the sand was what was draining their accounts.
That compounding interest is terrifying because it's invisible. And that set the stage perfectly for how Coach AJ ran the jar exercise. He had one of the participants intentionally do the demonstration wrong.
Yeah, that was tough to watch.
He had them pour all the sand and the dirt in first, basically representing how most of us actually live our lives, doing all the easy, instantly gratifying things first.
And then came the rocks.
Right. And when the participant tried to force the big rocks, the actual priorities, into the jar, they just wouldn't fit. The sand had taken up all the space.
It's spilling everywhere.
The jar overflowed. And what struck me was the visceral physical reaction in the room. You could literally hear the groans. It wasn't just a polite, oh, I see. It was a heavy collective sigh.
Mm.
Why does a visual model of failure hit the brain so much harder than just hearing the words?
Well, because it bypasses the logical defense mechanisms. Like, when you just tell a teenager you spend too much time on your phone, their brain instantly formulates an argument.
Oh, immediately. No, I don't. I need it for school.
Exactly. But when you physically show them a jar overflowing with dirt and a rock sitting uselessly on the table, it creates a massive cognitive dissonance. Their brain recognizes the physical impossibility of the math. They saw their own lives in that overflowing jar.
Then Coach AJ had another participant do it correctly. Big rocks first, then the pebbles, then the sand. And magically it all fit. The dirt just filled the empty crevices around the rocks.
And the visible relief in the room was palpable.
It really was.
The tension just broke. Because Coach AJ explained the takeaway, and it was incredibly liberating. He told them, you don't have to give up the sand to be successful.
Okay, I got to push back here, or at least play devil's advocate for the parents listening. Are we really saying it's fine for a kid to still play 4 hours of video games as long as they did their homework first? Isn't that still too much sand?
It's about sequence, not endorsement.
Right.
He wasn't telling them to gorge on the sand. He was neutralizing the negotiation.
Okay.
Teenagers usually think prioritization is a zero-sum game. If I do my homework, my life is over and I can't hang out with my friends. Coach AJ was showing them the math. If you put the rocks in first, you still have room for the fun stuff. The sand naturally fills the gaps without taking over the entire volume of your day.
That makes total sense. It lowers their defense shields because you aren't threatening to take away their fun. You're just asking them to reorder it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I have to say, my absolute favorite moment of the night, and this is where Coach AJ really flipped the classic analogy on its head, was the truth bomb he dropped about school.
Oh, that was a heavy one. You could hear a pin drop.
Coach AJ asked the room for examples of big rocks, and one of the participants proudly says, school. Now, any traditional adult in that room would have clapped.
We're conditioned to say, great job, yes, school is your ultimate priority.
But Coach AJ completely challenged that core belief right to their faces. He said school should not be their main priority.
Which is such a disruptive thing to hear in a youth leadership program.
I loved the friction of that moment.
Yeah.
The kids were staring at him like he had two heads. But his reframing was brilliant. He told them that school is just a building. It's a temporary structure. If school is your rock, what happens the day after you graduate?
You're totally lost.
Yeah. Right. He said that growth and teachability should be the ultimate rock.
Yeah.
Because growth happens everywhere.
And that changes the entire mechanism of how a student operates. Like, if school is the rock, then the goal is just compliance, passing the test, getting the grade, surviving the building.
Yeah.
But if teachability is the rock, you're fundamentally changing your character. Doing well in school just becomes a natural byproduct of being a teachable person who desires growth.
Exactly. And this brings us to how we actually execute that growth.
Yeah.
The mentors stepped in to explain the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. Now, we hear this thrown around in business all the time, the idea that 20% of your efforts yield 80% of your results.
Yeah.
But translating that for a high schooler is tricky.
It is. The mentors really had to break down what a 20% task actually looks like versus an 80% task.
Right, because let's look at the science of task switching. Studies show that when we jump between minor tasks, replying to a text, checking an email, organizing our desk, our brain gets a tiny hit of dopamine. We feel productive. But we're experiencing massive cognitive fatigue without actually accomplishing anything of substance.
And that is the ultimate trap of the to-do list, which Coach AJ pointed out perfectly. People look at a list of 10 things, and instead of prioritizing the impact, they cherry pick.
Always the easy stuff.
Yeah, they pick the easy things first. Sorting their backpack, replying to a group chat, the sand, leaving the heavy lifting, studying for the AP exam, or having a difficult conversation with a friend for the very end of the day when their cognitive battery is completely dead.
I always compare it to eating dessert before dinner. If you sit down and fill your stomach with cake and cookies, the sweet, instantly gratifying tasks, you feel full. but you have absolutely zero appetite left for the protein.
That's a great way to put it.
And the protein is where the actual muscle is built. It's the growth. Coach AJ's strategy to combat this dessert-first mentality was so simple it was almost offensive. He told them, don't prioritize a list of 10 things. Just pick one vital priority a day, one rock. Do that first.
And the physical reaction to that advice was amazing. You could literally see these teenagers drop their shoulders. They carry so much invisible anxiety. We live in a culture that demands they juggle 10 massive boulders perfectly every single day. Grades, sports, volunteer work, social lives, family duties.
They're too much.
Telling them they only need to focus on one heavy rock a day was like lifting a weight off their chests.
But that look of exhausted relief on their faces, that isn't just a teenage phenomenon. Which brings us straight to the adults in the room.
Yeah.
What does this mean for the family dynamic? How are we as parents contributing to that exhaustion?
Well, I think we really need to look at our own demands. By expecting perfection in all areas, parents might be accidentally teaching their kids to focus on managing a massive amount of sand rather than cultivating true rocks.
Yeah.
We spread them so thin with extracurriculars and micro expectations that they never actually learn how to hold one heavy rock properly.
I'm going to turn the heat up on parents even more here. Let's be real. It is incredibly easy for us to sit back, cross our arms, and judge a teenager for having 17 hours of screen time. It's an easy target. But what is happening at the dinner table?
Right.
Are we modeling how to put the big rocks first? Or are we constantly reacting to the sand?
That is the mirror we need to look into, because children are phenomenal observers. Even if they are terrible interpreters, they watch everything we do.
Seriously, you sit down for family dinner, which we all claim is a big rock, and your phone buzzes with a non-urgent work email. Do you ignore it or do you pick it up?
Ouch.
Because the second you pick it up, you are wordlessly telling your child that the sand of corporate noise is more important than the rock of family connection. We cherry-pick our adult to-do list just like they do.
We absolutely do. And this raises an important question, though, because this concept applies to so much more than just tasks and emails. It applies deeply to relationship.
A friendship discussion.
Yeah, Coach AJ delivered some really tough love to the youth during the session about reevaluating their friendships. He told them, point blank, if someone in your life is a neutral or a negative impact, you need to cut them loose.
He didn't sugarcoat it at all. He basically said, stop pouring toxic sand into your jar just to be polite.
Not at all. And it makes me ask the parents listening, are you empowering your kids to set those boundaries? Or are we forcing them to be nice to everyone, essentially forcing them to prioritize social sand over their own mental health rocks?
Boundary setting is a muscle. And the mentors brought up a profound, nuanced moment regarding boundaries that I think every adult needs to hear. They introduced the concept of no for now doesn't mean no later.
That was such a mature, emotional concept to introduce to teenagers.
It was brilliant. The mentors gave this real-world example. Let's say a teen has a massive chemistry test tomorrow morning. That test is their big rock. But tonight, at 9 p.m., their best friend calls them in a total crisis over a messy breakup. The natural, empathetic instinct is to drop the rock, ignore the test, and react to the friend's emergency.
Because the anxiety of disappointing a friend usually outweighs the anxiety of failing a test for a teenager.
Exactly. But the mentors guided them to realize they can say no tonight. They can tell their friend, I care about you so much, but I have to focus on this test right now. I will be fully available to talk to you tomorrow afternoon when I can actually give you my full attention.
It creates a win-win. You protect your priority and you offer your friend the best, most present version of yourself later, rather than a distracted, resentful, stressed-out version tonight.
But here's the ultimate challenge for the parents listening. We want our kids to be able to set those boundaries with their peers. But do we respect our kids when they try to set a no-for-now boundary with US?
Oof, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Right. Imagine your teenager says, Mom, Dad, I know you want me to take out the trash right now, but I am right in the middle of my big rock for the day, my history essay. Can I do the trash in an hour? Do we respect that boundary? Or do we take it as disrespect and demand immediate compliance? Because if we demand immediate compliance, we're disrupting their focus.
Yeah, if we demand immediate action for a minor chore while they are engaged in deep work, we are literally forcing them to pour sand into their jar before their rocks. We are actively undoing the very lesson we want them to learn. We're teaching them that their priorities don't actually matter, only our convenience does.
That is a tough pill to swallow, but it is so true. So how do we move this from a theoretical discussion of what we saw in that room into practical action at home this week?
Well, the first action is what we can call the one priority shift. We need to replace that exhausting morning routine. You know the
Oh,
one.
the morning gauntlet,
Yeah.
the rapid-fire interrogation.
Yes. Did you do your homework? Did you make your bed? Did you pack your lunch? Did you grab your cleats? Feed the dog?
Yeah.
It's just firing a machine gun of sand at them before they've even fully woken up. Instead, try Coach AJ's method. Look at your child in the morning and ask one question. What is your one big rock for today?
Okay, let me play the skeptical parent here. I'm admitting confusion.
Yeah.
How does a parent realistically just ask about one priority when the kid literally will miss the bus if they don't pack their lunch? Like, that sounds great in theory, but chaotic in practice. I still need them to do the sand.
It's a fair pushback, but it's not about ignoring the lunch or the bus. It's about shifting the psychological anchor of the morning.
Okay, go on.
You still make sure they get out the door, but the emotional weight of the conversation focuses on the rock. You help them identify the single priority that will make their day a true success. Maybe it's nailing a presentation, or maybe it's just surviving a tough social dynamic at recess. If they accomplish that one rock, celebrate it. Let the other 80% of the minor stuff be secondary, not the focal point of your relationship.
That completely shifts the tone of the house from management to mentorship.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, action 2. This one is going to require some serious bravery from the adults. I call it the vulnerable sand audit.
Oh boy, I know where you're going, and it isn't going to make people squirm.
Oh, I'm terrified just suggesting it because I don't want to show my kid my own Instagram time. But I challenge the listener to do a shared screen time audit with your teen this week. But here is the critical part, the absolute rule. Do not make it a lecture. Do not make it a punishment or a trap.
It has to be entirely mutual or it will backfire.
Completely mutual. Acknowledge the messy reality of parenting. Sit down at the kitchen table, pull out your own phone alongside theirs, and share your numbers together. Be vulnerable. Laugh about how ridiculous it is. Acknowledge your own struggles with the sand. Say, wow, look at this. I spent 2 hours scrolling news apps today when I really wanted to finish reading that novel. I'm really struggling to fit my rocks in, too.
The power of that is immense. When you remove the hierarchy and admit that you are fighting the exact same biological battle against the dopamine sand, it opens up a genuine dialogue. It goes from, you have a problem, to, we are facing a challenge together. You can brainstorm as a family how to make more room for the rocks.
It requires us to drop our egos, but the payoff is connection. And that connection is what gives them the safe space to grow.
Absolutely.
Because here's the final thought I want to leave you with before we wrap up. We spend so much time obsessing over what we are going to leave to our kids: money, a house, an inheritance, a good education. But time is the only truly non-renewable resource we will ever give them.
Yeah.
Every single day, a little more of it is gone. If we aren't deliberately teaching them how to spend it, and more importantly, if we aren't showing them how to spend it by the way we live our own lives, then the noise of the world is going to spend it for them.
That's incredibly powerful and so true.
Thank you for taking a few minutes to invest in your child's growth. If this message resonated with you, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel, like or comment on this episode, and share it with other parents who care about raising strong, capable young leaders. If you would like to learn more about Martin County PAL or are interested in supporting or partnering with our program, please reach out. This work only happens because of people who believe in meeting youth where they are and helping them grow into who they can become. We appreciate you being part of that mission.